The responsibilities of just taking care of our cousins and doing kind of the chores in the house that the ladies didn't want to do. I mean, it worked, and it was a really rewarding experience. I think it's really shaped me to be the man that I am today.
Yeah, so first of all, 80% of the boys and the young men who are in the Man Up Club, 80% are fatherless, which is a tragedy. So there's this absence when it comes to having positive male role models or father figures that will live in the home. Yo, what up, world? It's your man, Mr. Dean, aka Kross. You listen to the Man Up Club presents on Holy Culture Radio, and you know what it is. Man Up Club is a mentor leadership organization for young black males between the ages of 13 and 24. We mentor in four different areas, which is life skills, social skills, academic discipline, civic responsibility, with three main goals within the organization, which is to get young men to graduate from high school, keep them out of the prison pipeline, and get them to go into college or have a trade after high school. And what do we do at the Man Up Club? And with this Man Up Club Presents radio podcast and show, we basically give a voice to young black males across America. And with me today, I have my man Jerome Richardson, which is 21 years old from St. Paul. Man, say what's up.
What's going on, y'all? I'm happy to be here. You heard him, the man himself, St. Paul, Minnesota. Jerome Richardson, born and raised there, and kind of just happy to have a conversation about what's going on in the city, what's going on in my life.
Yeah, and that's what's up, man. So tell me a little bit about you and how you grew up, man, so the people can just kind of get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, so I guess I would describe myself as a youth advocate, student, lifelong learner, uh, who just enjoys making good trouble, like in the words of John Lewis. And so to back that up, I grew up in a family full of love and a family full of people, and so I always was interacting with my cousins and finding ways for us to kind of work together to do whatever we had to do. So a good foundation, and in that, I grew up in a very spiritual household, and so most of what we practice, what we learn, what we appreciated, kind of had a really deep spiritual lens. There was certain stuff we just didn't do, certain stuff we did do, and I think that really shaped me for who I am. Whatever your faith is, or whatever it is that your household kind of teaches you, I think it should be rooted in something that has good principles, guiding principles, and so I'm grateful for that. Nonetheless, I grew up in a family full of people. However, there weren't a lot of men in the household, and so as we talk about like what does it mean to be a man and how Man Up is kind of shaping men to be men, it's something that I didn't have the privilege of growing up with, and kind of had to grow up to be a man really quickly without that full on guidance. Most of my family is comprised of single black women, my aunties, my grandmother, and so I grew up around a lot of strong black women who have done a great job at raising young men and women in a very structured household. So I'm grateful for that as well. My mother, hairstylist, and so I spent most of my time either, if not in school, at the hair shop or at church. And so I say to people that really makes up who I am today. The two most cultural shocking experiences of a black experience I can tell you is the hair shop and the church.
Yeah. Well, did you so you grew up without a father, but did you have any brother? You got any brothers or sisters?
Well, I have brothers on my dad's side, but I grew up primarily within my mom's side, and so I have a younger sister. She's 6 years apart. Folks were married and got divorced and stuff like that. Life is life, but ultimately it was predominantly just my boy cousins and myself. My grandma had a block house, corner house, so there was so much to do with the corner house. You got
Okay.
responsible for like the whole
Block.
avenue,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah,
know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
When it comes to shoveling, raking, we live in Minnesota. So just the responsibilities of just taking care of our cousins and doing kind of the chores in the house that the ladies didn't want to do. I mean, it worked, and it was a really rewarding experience. I think it's really shaped me to be the man that I am today.
Yeah, so first of all, 80% of the boys and the young men who are in the Man Up Club, 80% are fatherless, which is a tragedy. So there's this absence when it comes to having positive male role models or father figures that will live in the home. What was it like for you? Like you mentioned, you grew up, in a black household full of women. I was raised, by a single mother. My family's huge. My grandmother had 17 kids, five boys, and the rest.
Yeah, I don't think I can
daughters.
escape it. I work for an organization, and it's two males in the office every day, me and my executive director. I just think black women in Minnesota just, they're doing their thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
Black men in Minnesota
women,
need a.
That's black women everywhere.
we need to do something about that here in Minnesota.
That's doing their thing. So what was it like? So then let me approach it from this angle. Then, what was it like not having a father in your home? How did that impact you?
Yeah, gotta give credit where credit's due. I think my younger sister's dad, played a pretty crucial role, in moments of need, when he could and when it was permissible within, him and my mom's relationship. But I think it played a big impact. I appreciate the village, and my mom, popular woman, had all the guy friends who played, ball at Central and all that. She's a cool girl, real good to get along with, real great friend. And so, a lot of her friends from Central, worked in the school district. Either that be like during school or like during Freedom School. And so like I definitely had a village of St. Paul black men who always had their eyes on me.
Okay.
And so for some reason, a lot of her people who graduated her class at Central, I think she graduated in 87 or something like that. They all kind of got into education. I can name people like Chester Logan and D'Angelo and Webb, Stewart, all those guys, right? So I think they were very crucial in just helping me how to navigate, being a student, and I went to Capitol Hill. It was pretty diverse, but predominantly white. And so to have, a village of people in St. Paul, that's why I love St. Paul so much, because it's small. People know each other. If you know your last name, you know what family you're a part of, right? And you can't say that everywhere. I also appreciate our elders in St. Paul who are still living and thriving, who have mentored and connected with me. So those people have played such a significant role in my life. And then, of course, church, my pastor, and then, the elders and the deacons at the church. So, me, I wasn't taking not having my physical father, although he was incarcerated, right, during all this as an excuse. I was very kind of adamant about relationship building on the early age, especially with adults. Like, that's just because I had to grow up fast, I think, though, too. I was often told, get out of grown folks conversations, or why do you want to do this or that, right? Why you just be a kid? But I think ultimately what I was really looking for is like this sense of understanding. And I realized at an early age that adults and have sort of this interconnected piece to how my brain, functions. And I want to be, I wanted to be in the know of what was going on and how it was going on. I think that's kind of what made me be who I am today. I have really great relationships with adults. I'm able to have really great conversations with adults and stuff like that, and kind of like understand, So I appreciate the village nonetheless, who kind of played a crucial role into parenting and raising and helping me be who I am today.
Yeah, so you was very inquisitive.
Very inquisitive, exactly.
And depending on what generation you grew up in, especially if it was an older generation, that was actually frowned upon, even though it's a great quality.
Right. But some way, somehow, I figured out how to navigate it. And I remember, being super, ambitious around organizing in high school. And, I would have tough conversations with the elders and the NAACP. Ain't that crazy I'm able to say that? Like, I wish my peers really understood just what community village and all these things were, and plugged into the very mechanisms that their parents utilize, Urban League and all these things. But me, I'm like, tap me into history. Like, I want to be on the right side of history, right? So I remember just, growing up, in high school, being a part of the NAACP and, becoming a member, and then in Minneapolis, and then realizing that, I live in St. Paul, so like I definitely need to be doing work in St. Paul, although, the movement was big and going in Minneapolis. And so I got connected with the NAACP in St. Paul and became like their second youngest youth president after, in fact, the Deborah Montgomery, who was youth president at 16 years old.
Nice.
She was the youngest. She's also was the first African-American police officer, female police officer in St. Paul, who's also a mentor of mine today. So that's just the interconnectedness of this. That's why, I'm grateful that I was that inquisitive and excited kid because I wouldn't be able to say, once I did my history and research on the NAACP during the George Floyd movement and all these things, when I wanted to get really active, that's when I found out about Deborah Montgomery being the youngest. It's a history fact. And that really created a pipeline for me to want to get connected to her. And so now I've been connected to Deb Montgomery for the past 5 years, 6 years. Just got off the phone with her 2 days ago, right? And so, like, these intergenerational relationships are lifelong. And I think every kid deserves to be at the table at an early age to learn at the feet of elders, which is why, it's so important to keep grandma's house and to keep my mom's house. And I wish I still had my grandmother's house. She had to sell it, unfortunately. But these are all things that are preventable. When your children don't take care of, the house that they was raised in, and grandma's getting tired and she wants to just go get her a high-rise apartment or go somewhere else or move out the state, it loses the integrity of the legacy. Yeah. And so, like, we can't complain about not having the porch anymore where we used to sit and have conversations because we ain't helped grandma keep the porch. Yeah. Right? We all have to work together.
Yeah, and as a culture, it's important to understand the value of legacy. Yeah. I think that's critical. We often don't value legacy, and it's interesting to hear you talk because you're only 21 years old. And so,
I'm already thinking about what is the legacy I want to leave behind.
Yeah, and that's great, but that's the point. That goes to my very point, which is most young people your age are not thinking that far ahead, and they're certainly not even reflecting on the past. And so I find it interesting. I wish that more young people would do it, but that just goes to how intelligent you are.
And I think I was kind of forced to, like, again, these two places that I lived in most of my life, if not at school or home, church and the hair shop. A hair shop is full of, I remember Lady V, some of the older ladies in the shop, looking and discipling me. Even at church, some of the mothers in the church looking at me, boy, where you belt at? You know what I'm saying? So I had no choice but to lean into it.
Yeah, well, we're going to definitely talk about it. I mean, we got a lot of similarities in that regard, just as far as not being able to grow up with our fathers, but even also, my mom was also a cosmetologist, and I used to be her shampoo boy.
Yep.
So we'll get into that in a minute.
Clipboard.
I'm going to say entrepreneur because there's a lot of things that you're into, man, and you're on a trajectory, obviously, to be a very successful young man, and you're definitely successful in your own right because I've already been observing you. I remember the first time that I came across our paths crossed, and I think I saw you. Is it the trumpet? Is it
saxophone?
I saw you playing the saxophone, and I was like, you know what? I need to invest in this little kid because obviously, everybody know that I'm into music and what have you, and with the festivals and things that I do. But it's like, anytime I see a young man that's doing something positive or they got great talent or what have you, I definitely want to always invest in that and push them forward and what have you. And we'll talk about that in a minute, man. But I'm saying that to say that I've watched you grow and you've developed quickly, like super fast. It's almost seemed like it's overnight. You feel me? From the time, because you played my first God Flow.
That was your first one?
Yeah. But do you realize that was 6 years ago?
I knew it was a long time ago, but this is new information. That's the first one, so I'm carrying something differently now.
Yeah, yeah, that was the first one.
All right, so, I was on the first lineup, first bill, by the way.
And that was 6 years ago.
Yeah, it was 6 years, and that was at Shiloh Temple parking lot. But I think we met prior to that.
Did we?
Do you remember when Billy Steele was playing the piano at George Floyd Square? And
I kind of remember that.
And
I know I led a
prayer.
I led
of some kind.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. So you think that was after or that was before? Because what year did you do God Flow? Is it 2020?
It was the same year that George Floyd got murdered.
It was 2020. Okay, so it had to be somewhere around approximately.
It was probably in the same.
Because what month was God Flow?
I think it was. I want to say either August or September.
August or September. So I think. Well, where'd you hear me play at?
I'm trying to remember. I heard
probably some outdoor event.
Yeah, I heard you play. Yeah,
right. And it might have actually been at that prayer.
It could have been
at George Floyd Square.
It might have been.
Yeah, because I did play. I played that day, and I also prayed that day.
Okay.
Now I don't get a chance to really go around saying I've had Holy Ghost encounters with people. But do you remember that that day when we all prayed at George Floyd Square, that was powerful.
Yeah.
No,
I
that was
remember.
powerful.
Yeah, I remember.
That was powerful. Like, it turned into something.
Yeah, it was a bunch of young people.
Yeah, it was not, because it was chill. We were just, they were doing like a worship. I know, I remember Billy Still was playing piano and singing, and then a couple prayers went forth.
Yeah, because he played
and
for
the
me when I
whole
performed.
atmosphere changed.
Yeah, he played for me when I performed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was good.
Yeah. So he played for me when I performed.
Yeah.
I orchestrated that prayer as a matter of
you
fact
did.
with all the young people
You
on
did.
stage. I actually got it. Now I'm thinking about it. I have a picture of it.
Yes, I have a picture of it too.
Do you?
I have a picture of me praying, actually, bro. That was. I'm
Yeah, it
sorry.
shifted.
That
The
was. That
atmosphere
was.
shifted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that.
I take no credit, but
No, that's exactly what it was. Now that I remember, I remember that's exactly when I heard you play.
But yeah, that was deep. Yeah, that was good. And then from there, I think we got connected, and I learned of your work with Buckner, Pastor Laura, and her work. I grew up
she's
going
on
to
my board.
I grew up going to church with her.
Okay.
So I grew up going to a church we don't have to name on the air, and which her and I no longer go to.
Okay.
But she's powerful of herself.
Oh, absolutely.
And so
she's the truth.
and then I saw your work with Pastor Nick and all that.
Yeah,
so I
Pulse
was
and all those things.
and you put me on the Pulse too, so that was great.
Yeah.
So like, there's just so many connections and ways that we've been connected and kind of seeing the footprint of our work.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure. Like I said, man, it's a pleasure to watch you grow and to watch you develop, and you're developing then, into a fine young man. Tell me a little bit about so you told me about, what it's like, growing up around your family and what have you, and you being raised by the village and this, that, and the other. So tell me about when you got your footprint into music.
Yeah, so, at a certain point, the village I had the village on my back, and still today, I believe, but, that critical moments of just trying to figure out myself, who I am, and still today, constantly evolving, but really crucial moments, in elementary school and in middle school. I mean, I got in trouble all the time, I just couldn't figure it out. And I think the village being so strong really created that pipeline, like you talk about, for me to really be able to just hold my own and now give back and show, those who have invested in me and believed in me, like what I'm capable of. And I think earlier on, it was really framed and shaped in terms of potential, right? And I think a lot of the things that I got into was really easily and quickly supported. I mean, anytime that I needed the community to show up for what I had going on, either that be a show, a fundraiser, I mean, at some point, it really was seamless. And I appreciate that, because I think people saw kind of just my evolution of growth and like where I was trying to go and what I was trying to do, and how I kind of didn't have a sense of purpose, or at least able to articulate it. And now how I just kind of am on this trajectory. So got into music, started to want to organize, people together to play Black American music. I realized I was the only Black kid in the jazz band, in the orchestra band, the concert band, the pep band, and I didn't really like it, so I think earlier on I was acting in my own activist in my own right, but didn't realize what it was.
Yeah.
I would often like do after school groups and pull some friends together during lunch, and we would play the music of Michael Jackson, music of jazz, Miles Davis, and these weren't things that they were like instilling in us in the classroom. And so I, in my own right, practiced at home, and went to Walker West and was exposed to all these things at church around music, and I was curious why this wasn't my same experience in school.
Yeah.
So I attempted to bring it into my school and my classrooms, and always find ways to perform at the talent show, and at the talent show I'll be playing Black music, period. I would have my friends join me, we would rehearse, we would go over it, and we would be playing the music of soul and of funk and all these things. And I even put together my own ensemble, I remember, and we would play songs like Uptown Funk, the things that the kids could relate to, or my peers could relate to, but wasn't too Black, right? They heard it on the radio, Bruno Mars, right? So then I started to do things outside of the classroom, and I put together my first ensemble to perform at the Twin Cities Jazz Festival at 17 years old, and kind of went on to play at the Dakota at that same year, did an Irv Williams tribute. Competed with my school jazz band out of town. We went to Wisconsin and did concerts. I obviously played at church every Sunday and was now getting invited to play in community events in other churches, especially after the death of George Floyd. And then recently, just continuing on my work and performing and creating some of my own music, which I'm hoping to release soon
Excellent.
at some point, as well as going on tour with Alicia Keys and performing, a couple times at the BET Awards and, all these different places and spaces, First Ave, So I'm really grateful for just kind of the path that music has created for me to be able to express myself, to be able to advocate in a Black way. I remember even at your events, I would always play like the Black National Anthem
Yep.
and, a change gonna come and those kind of movement resilient songs.
Yep. Yeah, and it's interesting to even see what where you're at today and the things that you're involved in. So you've done tours and this, that, and the other. So what is from your vantage point, what is the music industry like as far as from what you've experienced? From a personal perspective, because you've done a couple tours and been on the road and what have you.
Yeah, music industry is interesting. I'll talk like the business side. The business side is cool. Like if you're not the main act, you're not making money. Like that's the bottom line. Unless you're somebody's regular. Like if you're like a mainstream artist is regular, and then you have a guaranteed gig. But I also learned that the musicians in the music industry, it's really like a small ecosystem. Like Adam, I wouldn't call him Blackstone, from Philly. Popular music director, plays for Beyonce, plays for all these guys. I end up seeing a lot of the same musicians on the Alicia Keys tour perform at the BET Awards and other gigs. So it's like a ecosystem of musicians. There's not that many, and I'm learning that like when you really get in and build relationships, like you can be on call by folks, and we got a local guy here named David Smith who kind of there's even a group chat that he's a part of, and I'm really familiar with all those musicians. So I learned that the music industry is small. It's great to make good relationships, stay connected, stay practicing, put yourself out there. I also learned it's hard to kind of make money on your own. You got to stay creative. You got to sometimes do things you don't want to do. But it's a sweet life, I've got a chance to kind of meet some incredible people, to be exposed to incredible stages, performing in, arenas and stuff. That's ridiculous. Meeting different tour managers and kind of learning like what the show life is about, how fast paced it is, all these things. And so I'm not always super fond of, the kind of way that people treat people in the music industry. I've got a chance to be in rooms with all different genres, from like being backstage at Rolling Loud with Sexy Red, and in the tour bus with those guys, Rod Wave, and kind of seeing how they kind of do things and treat people, and the whole groupie culture and the whole like do this, do as I tell you type of vibe, which is not my thing. I've kind of been with like the musicians and the jazz R&B side. That's nice. I've been to Essence backstage and kind of seeing how they run things. It's much different. So I've kind of been able to be a part of it. And then, gospel, of course, and all these things and convenings that we do around gospel music. So I don't know if I really am made for the music industry or if I want to stick with the music industry, but it's definitely built character and kind of have taught me how to express myself.
Interesting. That's a very profound statement, because I really see you being really super immersed in the music industry. And maybe that's just because I'm looking at it just from a talent perspective or what have you.
Yeah,
but
people
I
don't know, like, I
music.
songwrite, I know how to engineer,
Yeah.
like, I'm a multi-instrument singer,
Yeah.
Saxophone player, all these things. Like, I really, if someone really was to help develop me and A&R me and all that, look at, I feel like, somebody got a pot of gold, whoever wants to mine it.
So we talk about your music, man, and what have you. So the thing is, you're multifaceted. You have a lot of gifts and talents, and the way I break it down when I'm mentoring a lot of young men and just people in general. A lot of people, man, they think because they have talent in a certain area that's what they're supposed to be doing, and that's where their lifeline is supposed to come from and what have you. But the thing is, what I teach people is that all of your talents lead to your gift. And your gift kind of leads to your purpose. So, for example, you know, you do activism. You know, you're a sax player, things like you talked about. You know, you got these different aspects of you and what have you. Out of all the things that you do,
Athlete, let's not forget.
Yeah, but the
You
thing,
know what I'm saying?
so
I
you
got
probably got about
7
20
D2 offers,
you
one D1 offer. Okay,
you probably
all right,
got
cool.
about 20 to 50 different talents.
I
And
decommitted from a school, by the way. DN.
where?
I decommitted from Concordia. I was gonna go to Concordia. Then
Well,
I got a preferred walk on from UNI.
basketball, football?
Football.
Oh, dope. What position?
DN. Yeah,
That's dope.
I was all conference.
I mean, that goes to my point,
You know,
though. Like, you got all these gifts and talents, but the thing is, like, okay, so if you just take that for instance, you take the D1 offer that you had and the fact that you're
And I got into Berkeley.
and music and that you're talented and that you get into these schools, it's easy for you to assume that both of those or one of those is your purpose and what you
Yeah,
should
it's
be
hard,
doing. But here's the
man.
thing. So here's the point I'm making is that out of all these gifts and talents, you take them all, and that's what leads you to your purpose.
Yeah.
Because they should feed that.
Right.
But you'd be surprised as to how many people get caught up in just because they're talented in something that they believe that that's what their purpose is.
Right.
And I bring that up because you're super gifted in music. But then you make the statement of, hey, I don't even know if I'm really wanting to be involved in that.
Right.
You feel me? So, you know, my thought process, man, in that regard is that what do you believe your purpose is?
Yeah, well, I guess let's backtrack. I'm a plot twist. I'm a political science senior at Temple University. Graduate spring 26. So
We'll give you an early congratulations on that
first
one.
gen, you know. And then, you know, what's the track with that? You know, you go to law school or you go to public policy, you're in government and, you know, all these things. I've worked on campaigns and all that stuff like that. So, you know, I might go to law school, you know. Will I be a practicing lawyer? Maybe not. Maybe just go for the degree, you know, just for the law degree. But, you know, that takes up a lot of my time. You know, I'm a full-time student. And within that, you know, I'm constantly organizing. I run community engagement at an organization here local in Rondo. And so, like, I've always dreamed of, you know, working in politics and, you know, at least, you know, in the past recent years and doing international, you know, human rights work and, you know, stuff like war crime, you know, helping people in Ukraine and Cameroon and all these places and doing stuff with the United Nations and, you know, immigration rights. Like, I'm all big because I'm a world traveler. I've been to, you know, almost all parts of the continent and kind of have been able to experience and see what third world countries are and underdeveloped countries are experiencing. I'm like, woe unto us. Like,
Oh, definitely.
there's so much work, and I know you've been to Africa and so many
definitely,
places. You know,
definitely.
So like that stood out to me. And then their culture is so beautiful. Their music, their personalities, their joy. You know, so I've really fell in love with just the diaspora and the entire globe. Where I don't even think I might even stay in the United States, but where do I go from here? Like, I definitely, you know, people have next president, you president, that's your track. I'm not doing that. Like, I'll be maybe chief of staff or something, but I don't really. I've noticed early on, I don't like limelight. I like to do what I want to do, you know. Maybe city council, you know, but Congress, U.S. Congress, that's a lot, you know. So I'm more of like your staff or like your advisor. Like, I have a consulting company, you know, and that's what I've been able to really operate in, and I like that. It's flexibility, you know, prior to getting my full time here now. But I don't know. It's so much to think about.
Well, I mean, you got plenty of time to do it because you're still young. I remember, you know, early on, you had approached me about organizing your own event, and right there, and you were young at that time, and so I was impressed with that because I know how much goes into organizing events, especially big events, and national events, and so just for you to be able to even want to take that on and have the vision for that, man, that says a lot about you. So I'm not surprised that you're into, you know, activism and community organizing and what have you. Tell me a little bit about, you know, what you're doing in that regard, in regards to activism and things.
Yeah, so I started this organization with my friends, and let me be clear, like, George Floyd changed my life. I know people say that, but, like, really, I don't really think I'd be doing activism for real had not been for George Floyd's life, you know, in his own rights, a leader in the movement.
Yeah.
Who changed the world for better. And so prior to that, I probably would be doing music still, or I loved chess growing up. Like
Oh, right.
I was in chess tournaments. I have pictures on the wall with me, chess trophies. I loved chess. I loved music, So, but I started this organization with my friends called Minnesota Teen Activists. If you're familiar with it, we led tons of walkouts and really sparked the youth movement in Minnesota to be as catastrophic as it is today.
Nice.
We've raised over $100,000 worth of mutual aid after the death of Dante Wright, and helping the Brooklyn Center businesses, and we led a rally with over 2,000 kids marching from Central High School to the governor's mansion after the death of Amir Locke, and just doing immense work.
And the newest and the most recent work.
Most recent one,
yeah.
a rally at the Capitol
Yeah.
after the massacre at Annunciation, which murdered a few children and few still surviving. So overall, just activating and mobilizing young people, on the ground and via Instagram and different platforms. I mean, we've gone viral a couple times. I've had the privilege to be on CNN Live and Teen Vogue and all these amazing things, BuzzFeed, and so I'm grateful for just a voice and a platform that I've been able to just elevate for young people in Minnesota. I don't take it lightly. Going to school in the East Coast really also expanded my horizon. Being able to see Black excellence, at the highest level, going to places like D.C. and Baltimore and New York and Philly, is really inspiring. I don't get to see that kind of in the North Star of America, if you will, the Midwest.
Sure.
And so I think every young Black woman or man in Minnesota should, travel outside of Minnesota and see what it means to be cultivated in environments that are designed for Black people to thrive in. Because Minnesota doesn't have that fortune all the time. And that really opened my eyes from seeing the fraternity brothers, from seeing the Congressional Black Caucus, and just excellence, and meeting friends who are just designed, who I just know are going to be great, and kind of can have those critical conversations with me, and I can see, myself in them, and it was very inspiring. So I'm grateful for that experience. I think HBCUs are great places for that as well.
Sure.
And all those things.
Yeah. So, in regards to your experience and in doing those things, where do you see yourself? Let's say, for example, in 2 years.
2 years. I'm glad you said 2 and not 10. Well, one of my mentors said you can't. You have to. It takes 10,000 hours to become a master at something, and you can't. You can't be a master at something. And I'm feeling those effects. Recently. I'm like. I sometimes feel like I'm not growing as fast as I. And I could be a better musician. I could be a better, public speaker. I could be a better, student. I could be a better, all these things. And I could have been a better football player, but I just was kind of spreading my time between things. My coach I would be doing an interview. Literally, I remember one day I did an interview on top of the field because I just had to do this interview. And I had my shoulder pads and my helmets next to me, and my coach was watching me from the field like this. What are you doing? I said, I'll be there in a second, coach. I got to do this interview real quick. So, I remember I was late to a game. Man, it's just stuff like that. So 2 years, I'm at a point in time where stuff costs. So whoever's paying me the most, you know what I'm saying?
So you're going to just chase the money like that?
That's what I'm doing right now. I mean, I would love to just, quit my job as doing community engagement for this granular organization and just focus on arts or focus on entrepreneurship endeavors, and all the fun stuff, making content on Instagram.
Yeah.
But I got stuff to. I'm an independent student.
I get it.
I got to pay for my own car insurance, phone bill, rent.
Life is life.
Yeah, life is life. And I like nice things. So.
Yeah.
I like nice things. My gas
as you
is
should.
$60 to fill up my tank. BMW. Jesus.
As you should.
Yeah.
Give me the state in your opinion.
So 2 years. Oh, hold on. I'll graduate from Temple in about less than a year.
Okay.
I kind of want to relocate from Minnesota. I just, I tell people all the time, so I should preach this to myself. Like, if you really want to be successful, you have to really lock down your home base and like really build your fan base and do all the things in Minnesota. Be kind to people in Minnesota, or your home base, And I feel like I'm at a level where like I've done, I won't say enough, but I've done a good amount of work here where I want to expand and meet different people. Minnesota's small. Minnesota also has its things. Like, I'm not really into the clique culture, the messy culture, the everyone knows everybody. Your ex was your cousin's other ex. It's too much.
But I hear you.
Well, I'm glad you a married man, brother.
I mean, I'm the kind of person.
But
man,
Minnesota is like that. It's too small.
I like to keep my head down and get to work done.
Yeah, but like, I'm 21, brother. At some point in time, everybody wants to be able to kind of put the wall down, and Minnesota's not a great place to do that in. Let me just put a recommendation out for anybody who just wants to, meet people, have fun, do things, I remember when I was like, I don't know. Yeah. Go to DC or something. Go to Atlanta or Texas, LA. I just feel like people have more grace and you can be who you want to be. Even how you dress. Like, let's just take a mere example like that.
Okay.
There's some stuff I would wear in New York that I would never wear in Minnesota. Because someone would look at me this way. I would be like, you're either too black or you're too white or you're too this or you're too that. This is not a place where you can just express yourself as a black person and own it and be appreciated for it and elevated and
that's
uplifted for
interesting
it.
that you say that, because I do find Minnesota to be a very artistic place, just based on all the cultures and all of that.
But it's standard.
But I
it's
think you're talking about something
bland.
different.
It's everybody wants to do an open mic and a karaoke, and we're just doing R&B classics and standards and covers. Where's the uniqueness?
I feel that.
Where's the alternativeness?
I feel that.
I
love it.
And there is that culture of people here, but
small.
they circulate their dollar amongst their small group of people.
Yeah, which is real. One of the things I want to get into, man, is with you being a young black man in America, the whole show is about giving a voice to young black men in America.
Yes.
A lot of times, that's the voice that's forgotten.
Yeah,
that's the voice that a lot of people overlook or they discard or discount.
Yeah,
you feel me? Or they try to speak for young black men. And so one of the main things that I wanted to do with the Man Up Club Presents is give the voice to young men so they can speak for themselves, so people can hear. Because a lot of times, we face situations where people have categorized us or stigmatized us in different aspects. We talked about the 80% of young black males being fatherless, and then, of course, there's the large, overwhelming incarceration rate, the murder rate, and then we can even talk about, education, because it's probably like in Minnesota, it's like 78% of young black males graduate, and so, America has built this idea around black men, basically like, okay, black men are bad, or stay away from black men, or be apprehensive about, you black men and what have you. But from your perspective, and based on all that you're doing, because you come from a unique perspective with the music, how you were raised by the village, and then also you're into advocacy and all of those things, and you're well traveled. So the wrapping all of that up, what is your thought process as far as the state of black culture in America from a youth perspective? Where's the young black culture at in America?
Yeah, I think there are a few types of young black men and women. There are those who have had fairly a good upbringing and, kind of just, have the privilege just to live and to just jump right into their greatest excitements and their hopes and dreams and, inspire the rest of the world of black people and other people. And then there are those who, have that privilege and opportunity, but still are looking for this sense of, purpose, identity, and it often turns into joining into this resistance movement and being an advocate and an ally for other people. Then there's people who don't grow up with, the fortune of these things, and they get this opportunity or grow this boldness to be somebody and to do something great and end up being something great and living and being an inspiration. And then those who don't grow up, again, with the privilege of, having the doors open, and still want to be a part of this resistance movement. And I think that's me. Like, I'm so intrinsically tied to this resistance movement, which is good. But I also think as Black people, we have to be careful not to just operate in a autopilot of resistance. And resistance can look real good. It can look like awards. It can look like a lot of money in your bank account. It can look like, it can look like the perfect person. It could look like all these things. And so I've really just really been intentional about how I show up and what does resistance mean for me? What does, and then what does full participation of myself look like as well, and not just resistance. And that full participation is taking care of myself in a world where Black men are so often stigmatized, are so often denied and deferred. It makes it even harder for the Black man to be able to articulate himself, to feel his emotions, to be aware, to have this sense of purpose and vision, and because of that, we default to resistance in everything that we do. And so I'm in a moment and in a season of my life where I'm resisting less, and I'm taking less moments and opportunities to put myself in this fight for resistance and resilience, and instead rather be patient with myself, focus on my emotional intelligence as a Black man, my articulation as a Black man, how I identify and describe myself as a Black man, because I think those are very important things that we, as the ones that are seen as the highest, the what does Kevin Samuel call it, some quality of a man. I don't necessarily recommend his philosophy, but he has a certain way that he describes men as being a high quality man, high value man. There we go.
High value.
We have Black men who are seen as high value, right, are often kind of counted out of their own interpersonal issues, because you got to figure it out. And shoot, if you're a Black man, you got to figure it out. You must be God ordained or perfect, right? Because it's not normal, right? But for me, living in that sort of realm is just as difficult as living in a realm where I don't have anything figured out as well, right? And I think we as people have to give grace to Black men, have to give them space to amplify their voice and be their own advocates, but also support them in healing and figuring things out and not having all the answers, especially in a society where we are most impacted by stigmas. So that's where I am right now. That's where I am in the state of a Black person in America right now, is figuring out how I can be my best version of myself, so that I can continue to defy the odds and shape the narrative when I'm outside in the world and being great, as to what a good man is, a good Black man is, who we are, our identity, and who we can be, how we contribute to this world, why we're needed, and the importance and the value of us as human beings as well.
What's the most difficult thing that you've ever overcome?
I think just the constant fear of not knowing if you're enough, you're doing enough, or if you're seen to be enough. And I think one of the most easiest examples is when I get pulled over. I'm terrified. I feel like my heart go down to my guts when I see lights behind me. And it's those like small things that kind of just layer on to the Black man's experience. I'm terrified, of the likelihood of being, another victim of police violence as a Black man. I mean, it's those things that are difficult. It's not the actual, sometimes it's not even the actual action of it. It's just the anticipation that someone is perceiving you this way, someone is thinking of you this way, someone has already determined who you are just based upon you being a Black man. That's the scariest thing. And that's the thing that me, as a critical thinker, and as a perfectionist, and as someone who always wants to be a virtuous person, but also give myself grace for mistakes, but also learn from my mistakes, but also be in a society where we're deemed as individuals who don't learn from our mistakes, it's hard. So just blocking out the noise and focusing on who God has called you to be. I've heard in this week faith probably about 10 times. And I don't know where that's coming from, but I'm going to say it for the 11th time, faith. And if anything that I said today is to have the faith to be the black man that God has called you to be, or whomever you believe has called you to be, you yourself has called you to be. And remember that your purpose is not defined by who you are. And that, as you said, Corey, that all of your talents make up your gift. And me and my friends say all the time that we are in desperate need of everyone's gift to give. And so give your gift.
I like that. I think that's really dope. I think faith is huge, and faith plays a major role. And who do you credit for your level of faith?
I definitely credit just my grandmother and my family being rooted in, a God-fearing household, even if all the things that, even if their approach to, it wasn't always right.
Yeah.
But the overall premise of what they installed in me and my relationship with God and my curiosity to have that at an early age is what grounds me today. I see faith I don't see faith separate from my trust in my relationship with God. My family is another aspect of faith. Outcomes, impact, progress builds my faith, because every time I sometimes think it's not going to happen, it happens. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
But I definitely got to constantly grow in our faith. I think faith is that thing that is like, it's like wind, it wavers.
Is there anything in particular that you would like for people in the world to know?
Everything we just said, internalize, run it back, listen to it again. We talked about, but,
You lie, so you got it all locked in, right? Okay.
I said the mic drop. We're in desperate need of your gifts.
I got it.
We need your gifts, and most, but most importantly, in this world where Black people in general are facing this constant identity crisis. Why are we facing identity crisis? Because America isn't identified. We don't. Yeah.
There it is.
But this constant identity crisis, and if you're having that, or if you're struggling or curious about who you should be or what you should be, or figuring things out in life, just follow your greatest excitement. And when you follow your greatest excitement, everything else happens. It unfolds.
I like that. I like the identity crisis, because I think as much as we like to be pro-Black and dibble and dab into different movements and what have you, I think all of it is a quest for identity, and to understand our own identity and to claim that for ourselves.
Yeah.
Here in America.
And I would say reclaim.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good term too. And the reclaim.
Yeah.
And the reclaim.
Yeah.
It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
Man, it's a pleasure to have you on the program. Like I said, well, if I hadn't said it directly, I'd need to say that I'm extremely proud of you.
Thank you so much. And
No, for
thank
real.
you for, you've always just been, you got that poker face, but it's always inviting. There's some people who poker face, in this industry, in this movement, you kind of never can get a temperature check. I appreciate how you're always real and responsive, and you show up. If it's 10 people or if it's 10,000, that number doesn't matter to you.
No,
and so I appreciate that. It's inspiring to see the way you are as a Black man, and you raise your children.
Thanks.
And raise other many men in this world. When you peep things, you don't always say it, but
Yeah.
we were at the Capitol steps, and one of the young men had his shirt, kind of tucked weirdly.
It wrapped around his waist.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Dean, like, hey, brother, fix your shirt.
It's
So
funny
it's
you
those
picked up
things
on
that
that.
you are just, observant and aware and intentional, and that shows just the authenticity of it all. And so I'm excited. I'm waiting for my turn. You done got in the studio, in the booth, in the creator space with DJ, my homie, with what's her name? I think her name was
Ain't no telling.
start with a D. She
Ain't no
just started
telling.
your program. She sings.
Okay.
Phillip is her last name. But
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so
But what?
let
so
me know.
you next?
Let me know when we cooking something up when we making some. Let's
anytime.
make some money together.
Well, first of all, you're always.
You want to make some money?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's make some money.
I'm always ready to make some money, man. Always ready to make some money.
Well, thank you for having me today, man.
No doubt. Don't doubt. We're going to make it happen, man. We'll make it happen. We'll build from here. It's your man, Mr. Dean. You listen to the Man Up Club on Holy Culture Radio. If you want to follow the Man Up Club, go to themanupclub.org. Once again, that's themanupclub.org. And follow us on IG at themanupclub.mn.